Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We've got Mr. Muyiwa Shubo here with us, a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Well, it's 57 years, and so many people have different views, perspectives about where the country could have been, what we could have achieved. But, you know, listen to politicians, they could say anything. They could promise you all sorts, and we will keep hearing from them. But, you know, there are those who also say that it does appear as though the judiciary is in bed with politicians, and that's why they think they've not lived up to their billing. Would you say that the judiciary has not achieved or performed the kind of functions you would have expected them to stabilize us and then move us to that particular place where Nigeria can be?
Yes, I think there's general perception, and that perception is actually correct. Because if you look at the judiciary right now, and you look at its role as part of the check and balance that we have to achieve in a democracy, you see that it's grossly failing. And the reason for that is simple. We need to have fundamental changes. You see, the people who actually proposed or suggested the American type of presidentialism actually perhaps overlooked the fact that you have to realign the judiciary to play that role. The American presidentialism that we are copying is not sustained by military force, it's not sustained by anything, but the power of the judiciary, and is set in such a way to oversee the other, to provide oversight and balance to the other two arms of government. That we have not done. So we have to go a step back and start looking at this as need for fundamental changes. I'm not talking about this little palliatives here and there and all these piecemeal approaches. It has to be comprehensive overhaul from the prosecution of cases, investigation, even up to the issue of the Supreme Court. Let me give you an example. It is only here that you have the Supreme appeal to the Supreme Court is by right. The system that we copy is not by that. It's not by right. You don't have a right to appeal cases to the Supreme Court of the United States. No, you don't. The Supreme Court will decide which cases it will hear. And there's standard for it. If it does not have anything to do with the Constitution, doesn't have any presidential issue, I'm talking about precedent as in the issue of stare decisis and so on and so forth, the Supreme Court will refuse to hear it. Now, you have cases that have been had in the Supreme Court that dating back to 2004. If you look at that an appeal filed in 2004 is just being addressed now, you are looking at a way down the road for all this to go through. Now, that's just one aspect that we have to seriously look at those in the dispensation of justice. Otherwise, we've just been running around in a circle.
But how easy do you think that that's going to be where we get to that point wherein the average citizen can get justice? Because these days, they say it costs a fortune for you to get justice if it's not some of those high-profile political or election tribunal cases. It's tough.
You're right, and I think we've spoken about it before. The style and the setup of the judiciary actually focuses on the lawyers. We should not be. It's not the lawyer, it's not the legal practitioner. The people and justice must be the focus, and we are not doing that yet. Look at the rank, this issue of this ranking system and privileges given to lawyers. Those are unheard things in a democracy. You don't give some people some higher right, and the court that's supposed to serve everyone equally, and then expect equal dispensation of justice. It's not hard of. For instance, the issue of this privileges given to the senior advocate is causing so much disruption. I don't know why we are not reviewing that.
What kind of disruption?
I'll give you an example. The issue of privilege of hearing, giving priority to cases handled by SAN. And that is why, when you give such privilege, they hold sway over judges. Judges look at them differently. And that is why those high, powerful cases go to the senior advocate. There's a belief in the system that unless you get the senior advocate to appear in court, and judges are shivering at their presence, you won't get justice, and that is wrong. Because if the system itself says this person, this lawyer, is more equal or higher than this other lawyer, I mean, it's not level playing field, and that is anti-justice.
Does that mean that we shouldn't pay attention or lay emphasis on seniority at the bar?
You can pay any attention you want to seniority at the bar, so long as you don't have privileges that makes one lawyer more equal than the other, if you can use that term. You can honor people. The QC system that we are copying, I don't think they give them priorities like that in appearance court, and definitely not the United States, which we copy. I practice there. It doesn't matter for how long you have practiced in court. Once you appear in that court, you are simply level with any other lawyer. Why? Because you are not the issue. It is not you. It is not your honor. It is not your years of experience. It is about that client who is standing in front of the court looking for justice.
Okay. From your submission so far, it would look like you want us to shift to the point where we look at the individual and justice for the individual.
Yes.
How possible is it to achieve that?
It is possible if we review everything that we are doing and we look at it that justice is about the people that we serve. It's not about the lawyers, it's not about the judges. If we look at it from that point of view, that we have to bring that confidence into the system, that when people walk into the court of justice or where they are confronted with issues, they have the confidence that they are being served right, their rights are being protected. All of these issues we have to look at. The court processes itself. Let me give you another example. In this modern day and age, is it now that we are not taking advantage of electronic devices and electronic systems? In Nigeria, judges are still required to write their judgment in longhand. Now, when we don't even use typewriters no more, that we now use word processing. But it's part of the rule that you have to. Imagine a judge sitting down there all day writing, and he's sitting there at 8, 9 hours writing, and you still want him to be able to think straight. I mean, he's not a superhuman being.
Is it possible to achieve this realignment, if I may use the word, or permit me to borrow the word restructuring? Is it possible to get this outside of the political class?
It is possible only if lawyers will stop looking at the judiciary as themselves, but start looking at it as a public service to serve the public and the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The court can issue rules. The Chief Justice can issue rules that can fix all these things. The NBA can look at its own composition and try to fix all this. Okay. So it starts from the lawyer.
The Chief Justice has just issued some rules, setting up a committee, for instance, to monitor graft cases, also setting aside certain courts for treatment or for handling of corruption cases. Is that a direction, is that a good rule that he has given there, or do you think that rule will help in any way to handle some of these things you're looking at?
Well, it might, but you have to, I heard about it last night just like everybody else. For me, it is outside of the comprehensive approach that I will suggest or that I will push for, that other people are advocating. But look at the composition of that committee from the outset. It is controversial. And that takes away from whatever benefit that the Chief Justice wants to. For instance, Justice Salami being the chairman, I have nothing against Justice Salami, but he was involved in some controversy that is now taking. If you look at the newspapers this morning, they say Justice Salami picked to chair this committee. It's not that the CJ empaneled a committee to look at it. So Justice Salami immediately becomes the focus, which is distracting from the purpose.
But they do have other members.
Yeah, they have other members. List. And I'm going to get the other members as well.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you have that, and apart from that, now you have all sorts of senior advocates as members of of the committee, and that raises issue of potential conflict of interest. These senior advocates are going to be appearing in the courts that they are going to be monitoring. Let us think about this conflict of interest. If you have a senior advocate that, according to what the panel is supposed to be doing, monitoring the judiciary, including looking at the background of judges that will be put on this special court, a lawyer who will be appearing in front of a judge is now involved in looking at the background of that judge. Isn't that
Are they going to be appearing before those judges? Because they are members of that NGC committee on trial of looters. So if they select special judges to handle those cases, I don't think that those same judges will now be members of this same panel.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
A member of the panel who is a senior advocate, and we already said that most of these corruption cases go to senior advocates. What is the likelihood that a member of that panel, ranking of these senior advocates, will appear in court, in one of these special courts, on which he had been involved in either vetting the judge that is sitting down there, or having something to do with that court, or the running of that court? That is potential conflict of interest.
But we also do
have to avoid.